Hey everyone! What if I told you that one of the most chilling final words ever spoken in a gas chamber wasn't a confession, wasn't a plea for forgiveness, but simply, I'm human. I'm human. Today, we're diving deep into the tragic case of David Lawson, a man whose story is so much more complex than just another death row execution. We're talking about untold childhood trauma, a bizarre legal battle involving a famous TV host, and final moments that will absolutely haunt you. And here's the thing. Most people think he was executed by nitrogen gas, but the truth is far more disturbing. So grab your coffee, because this story has layers that'll blow your mind. The man behind the crime. Let's start with who David Lawson really was, because this isn't your typical death row story. Born into what can only be described as a living nightmare, Lawson's childhood reads like a textbook case of everything that can go wrong. Picture this. At just 2 years old, his alcoholic parents divorced, and he was shipped off to his grandparents like unwanted luggage. When he returned to his mother, guess what? She'd married another alcoholic who made David's life absolute hell. His younger brother later testified that their stepfather's abuse was relentless and cruel. We're talking about emotional torture that would break most adults, happening to a small child day after day. And here's the kicker. David developed severe depression as a kid, was medicated for it, but somehow this crucial information never made it to his trial jury. Dr. Nathan Strahl, who treated Lawson on death row, diagnosed him with severe recurrent cyclical depression that had plagued him his entire life. The doctor's professional opinion? Lawson was so mentally ill during his trial that he couldn't act in his own best interests. And honestly, when your defense strategy is literally asking the jury to execute you, I'd say that's a pretty clear sign something's not right upstairs. But wait, it gets even more twisted. December 4th, 1980, the crime that changed everything. On a cold December night in 1980, David Lawson made the decision that would seal his fate. He broke into Wayne Shin's house near Concord, North Carolina, in search of gold and jewelry. Here's how it went down. Wayne Shin heard his burglar alarm and rushed home with his father, Buren. When Wayne entered through the patio door, Lawson was waiting with a gun. He ordered Wayne to turn around and shot him execution style in the back of the head. But it didn't end there. Buren Shin, the father, was outside in a truck. Lawson forced him out, marched him toward the house, and despite the old man's desperate pleas, shot him in the back of the head, too. Miraculously, Buren survived. The bullet didn't penetrate his skull. Lawson's motive was chillingly practical. He killed them to eliminate witnesses because he did not want to go back to prison. Cold, calculated, and absolutely brutal. The confession came through Phyllis Soden, who had driven Lawson to and from the crime scene. When he returned to her car carrying a crowbar, he told her everything. He genuinely believed both men were dead and showed zero remorse. This confession became the backbone of the prosecution's case, but what happened next in the courtroom was absolutely unprecedented. The trial that broke all rules. Okay, so here's where this case goes completely off the rails. During the sentencing phase, David Lawson did something that defense attorneys have nightmares about. He actively campaigned for his own execution. Standing before the jury, he said, "I'd like the death penalty. To be locked up in prison for something I did not do is truly cruel and inhuman. I didn't do it. I don't care what anybody says. I'm innocent. To be put in prison for life, that's not right. You think I done it? Gas me." Wait, what? He confessed to the crime, but claimed innocence while asking to be executed. This is the kind of contradictory behavior that screams mental illness. But remember, the jury never heard about his lifelong depression and suicidal tendencies. The judge attempted to explain that the court wasn't bound by his wishes, but rather had to consider mitigating factors. But with limited evidence presented about his background, the jury found that the aggravating circumstances outweighed the mitigating ones. 2 aggravating factors sealed his fate. The murder was committed to avoid arrest, and it was part of a violent crime spree. The few mitigating factors? No significant criminal history and cooperation with prosecutors in another case. That's it. A man's entire traumatic life story was reduced to a couple of bullet points while his mental illness drove him to beg for death. If you're finding this case as fascinating and disturbing as I am, smash that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into true crime cases that'll keep you up at night. Trust me, this story gets even crazier. The Phil Donahue Connection, a media circus. Fast forward to 1994, and David Lawson teams up with the most unlikely ally imaginable, Phil Donahue, one of America's biggest talk show hosts. Their mission? To televise Lawson's execution live on television. I know, it sounds absolutely insane, but both men had their reasons. Donahue, a vocal death penalty opponent, argued the public had a First Amendment right to witness what the state does in their name. He wanted to show America the brutal reality of capital punishment. Lawson's motivation was more personal and heartbreaking. He said broadcasting his execution would give his life meaning and hoped it would draw attention to the devastating effects of untreated depression. The legal battle was swift and brutal. Every court they approached, state, federal, all the way to the Supreme Court, said absolutely not. The state of North Carolina fought tooth and nail, arguing it would turn a solemn occasion into a circus. By fighting so hard against the circus, they created the biggest circus imaginable. The media coverage was everywhere. Justice Harry Blackmun issued a lone dissent, not about the filming, but about the gas chamber itself, calling its cruelty serious and well-documented. This was an ominous preview of what was coming. The method: why gas, not nitrogen? Here's where we need to clear up a huge misconception. David Lawson was not executed by nitrogen gas. That's a modern, largely untested method some states use today. He died in North Carolina's cyanide gas chamber, and the difference is absolutely horrifying. The process was medieval in its brutality. Potassium cyanide pellets were dropped into sulfuric acid, creating hydrocyanic gas that would fill the sealed chamber. This attacks your nervous system and kills you by preventing your cells from using oxygen. Death typically took 6 to 18 minutes of conscious suffocation. North Carolina had used this method since 1935, claiming it was more humane than the electric chair. The very first execution in 1936 proved that it was a lie. The inmate convulsed violently and took 11 excruciating minutes to die. By 1994, inmates could choose lethal injection instead. But Lawson, he didn't choose. He defaulted to the gas chamber, becoming the first person to die that way in North Carolina in 30 years. Was this another manifestation of his self-destructive mental illness? Given the choice between a clinical injection and a notoriously brutal, terrifying death, he picked the worst option available. The final 24 hours, June 14, 1994. The legal battles were over. The Supreme Court had spoken. David Lawson had roughly 24 hours left to live. Justice Blackmun's dissent about the gas chamber's cruelty hung in the air like a prophecy. Somewhere in his cell, Lawson composed what would become one of the most powerful final statements in execution history. I am a human being, no more and no less than any other human being. It is no more right for the state of North Carolina to take my life than it was for me to kill Wayne Shin. I'm sorry I killed Wayne Shin. I hope North Carolina will one day be sorry that they killed me. This wasn't the rambling of a madman or the defiance of a criminal. This was eloquent, remorseful, and profoundly human. It acknowledged his guilt while challenging the morality of state-sanctioned murder. But his written words would soon be overshadowed by something far more primal. At 2:18 a.m. on June 15, 1994, David Lawson died in North Carolina's gas chamber. But his final moments revealed the tragic duality of his entire story. As the executioners prepared to place the mask over his face, something snapped. The composed man who wrote that eloquent final statement was replaced by a terrified human being facing the absolute finality of death. Through the thick glass, witnesses heard him scream over and over, "I'm human! I'm human!" Two final messages. One written in reflection, acknowledging guilt, expressing remorse and challenging the system. The other screamed in terror, a desperate biological plea for recognition of his basic humanity. Which was the real David Lawson? The thoughtful man grappling with consequences, or the traumatized individual consumed by lifelong pain? Maybe he was both. So what do you think? Was this justice served, or a mentally ill man failed by the system? And should executions be public to force society to confront what we're doing? Drop your thoughts below. If you want more deep dives into death row cases and the complex stories behind them, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Next week, we're covering another shocking final meal request that'll absolutely blow your mind. You won't want to miss it.